All right, I'm gonna hit you out of the gates. Those numbers today, the job numbers, those weren't dazzling, were they?
No, no, wasn't good. I
Who's
and I
getting
would.
fired?
Well, I mean, the mailman that dropped him off at the White House, I'm sure he's got his, neck on the chopping block. Um, yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks that maybe the Trump administration saw these bad numbers coming down the pipe, and that's why they were so adamant about cutting rates. But no, I like I told you before. Yeah, this administration is just remarkably bad at phrasing things. Any number of people could lose their job at the BLS for a whole host of reasons, because so much of the data they put out is it's appeared politically biased at times. Um, it appears to be very doctored in the sense that I just feel like they massage the numbers until they get what they want. And yet so even you could get a room full of people that were tired and fed up with the BLS, and then Trump could figure out a way to phrase it that would still tick him off. The fact that you're firing someone. And I'll go back to my old adage. I still think the guy's I think the guy's a pretty good doctor. He just has the worst bedside manner.
Oh, yeah, you saw that yesterday with "It's a hoax." You're like, "Okay, really, that's not probably the thing to say here." But the numbers don't look good. And I don't know what's gonna happen with the tariffs because that's always was going to go to the Supreme Court, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but it is unsettling. It's like, are we gonna have to pay this back? I mean, I feel like things are getting a little away at times from the message, from what they're hoping to do, and I think that's making people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And again, we're all just spitballing, right? We're trying to interpret this stuff from the sidelines, and doing so on the fly, and all that stuff being said. Um, but when I look at this situation, it appears to me that they got into this trade dispute or this trade negotiation, however we want to phrase it, with China, thinking that they had more leverage than they did. That's what it feels like. Now, maybe that was just purely a perception issue on their part. Maybe there were some key things that they were miscalculating. I'm not really sure what led to that, but um, it's really hard to look at the state of negotiations between us and China and come to any other conclusion.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, um, and I was just having a conversation with a client about this today. Um, Truthfully, if we've got rational actors making rational decisions, neither the United States or China can maintain their current standard of living or anywhere close to it without the other,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think either government would be in a very good position at all if they went the other direction. Meaning, you know, there's a lot of signs that I think that the Chinese Communist Party has a lot of control, but has less than they're perceived in some way. And I think economic issues would be the quickest way for them to lose grip of
Like
things.
serious control, like the kind of stuff where people are on the streets and the tanks are out there and they're not doing what the guys are telling them to do.
Right, right. And on an economic basis, because this is not the same culture. What you're watching the generation that actually stood in Tiananmen Square come of age, right?
Yeah.
They're turning into the ruling class. They think very differently than the Z generation. And I think that's going to be a good thing for our relationship with China, or can be a good thing with our relationship in China. But does that mean we have to accept things the way they are? No. And we have to quit allowing us. I think Trump said it really well, though. He goes, in that one meeting he had with the Chinese premier, or I think it might have been their head trade guy, but he said something to the effect of, "Look, I don't blame China, I blame us."
Yeah. Oh,
Right? And
absolutely.
and I really honestly believe that needs to be the platform, because did China take advantage of us? Yes, but no more than we would of them had the roles been reversed.
And we allowed it. we like the cheap goods and we were okay going, we take the cheap goods, right? Our people like to consume more than they like to make.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, they didn't put a gun to our head by any way, shape, or form, right? Our companies went over there, and in a lot of ways, it shows you how dumb corporate America can be, because naturally you'd come to the conclusion, wait a second, they're a manufacturing company, and that's a communist organization. There's no way they put 100% of their manufacturing base over there. Oh, but they did, right? And they could have had a secondary in Vietnam or Taiwan, for probably fractions, it's a few percentage points difference in overall cost, and had so much more of a secure and redundant manufacturing system, and they didn't do it. So yeah, I look. There's definitely some the Confucius Institutes at universities. I'm not at all absolving China for their nasty tricks. I'm just saying, if the scales are tipped on the economic side of things, which they clearly are, that is something that we have done to ourselves. And I think it's ridiculous and a waste of time to try to blame them for it.
Oh man, I tell you what, talking to Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bullard Capital. We're probably going to see a rate drop at some. I don't know. They're so cautious. It's probably going to be, a quarter. I think we recognize it. 50 would be like, whoa. And Trump was like, drop it down to 0. And you're like, settle down. Look, we're heading into the fourth quarter. This is the season where you got to make hay for a lot of these people. This is it. This quarter, you got Christmas, you got all the stuff. It's holiday spending. People are nervous, man, because I tell you what, the fear factor is this doesn't go well. We could be heading into the first quarter where we could see a serious slowdown.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that is certainly in the offing. Some of the data is softening there. To be fair, I think that you're seeing a lot of conflicting data signs here in the U.S. domestically. Things appear to be slowing. That to me is undeniable. We see some early signs, some leading indicators that suggest that you might be coming up a little bit now, or might be picking up a little bit. Because remember, anytime we're reading economic data, by definition, we're looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah,
right.
It's stale, but it's not as stale as it can be.
Right. And so really the trend is there. What I will tell people is there's some softness. Yes. Do we see a downward trend? I think you could say things are trending in the wrong direction, but you have to consider where we were coming from. So, but as of right now, you don't see anything alarming. There are many things that I think that could become alarming in a really short period of time. But quite honestly, with the stock market where it's at, I really don't see I don't really feel like you're going to see a big reduction in consumer spending. And I'll continue to go back to this. And I think if people are looking at economic data and looking at the markets and taking a step back with a little bit of perspective, they can see this for themselves. When the stock market is bumping around all-time highs or within 5%, it almost seems like regardless of what goes on a macroeconomic level, retail spending doesn't seem to get hit. And I think it makes perfect sense when you sit there and you realize that, I think like 70% of the stock market is owned by the baby boom generation.
Yeah.
Right. Who's retiring every day. So, like this year right now, our main stock portfolio, our value fund is up 23% on the year. Our clients, assuming things continue the way they are, they're probably going to buy some extra presents for the grandkids, and probably, and several of them will go on an extra vacation because of the outperformance that they've seen this year. And as long as the market keeps ticking higher and higher, I think we've got to wrap our heads around that. I think this is an economy that is driven by a stock market now, not the other way around. And as long as that market keeps going up and to the right, I think consumer spending can hang in there.
Talking to Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bullard Capital. What does scare you, dude? Like, what would you look at and say, man, you know what? This is giving me the heebie-jeebies. And I'm talking not even just the stock market, but maybe looking out, the macro and the micro. Stock market is macro at times and micro, but just across the board where you would look and say, okay, this feels uncomfortable for Main Street and Wall Street.
If you saw a meaningful pickup in the price of the dollar right now, I can't really see what would precipitate that. I think that there is extraordinary vulnerability in private equity right now that Quite honestly, it surprises me, and I honestly believe that the only reason there haven't been bigger, and to say there haven't been big issues, see, there have been massive issues. Just recently, we were looking at one of the tallest. This is not some old throwaway building, but one of the tallest, biggest, most modern office buildings in downtown Chicago. Just sold, I want to say, for something like 36 million bucks. Okay, I believe it was last purchased or financed back in like 17 or 18 for like 350 million. Okay. The only reason that's not making a bigger issue is because there is still so much liquidity floating around. And think about it, because of the term funding plan that came out to rescue the regional banks there in 2023, 2022, 2023. Um, all of those banks, even the ones carrying the bad paper, any hits they took on their treasuries, they were able to turn back to the Fed at face value, right? So some of them were even able to make money on it, right? Maybe they bought it at a discount to par, sold it to the Fed at par. So I think there's just so much liquidity has been pumped out there. It's just covering a lot of ills. And that's one of the tough things when we think about things that could scare us. It's going to sound kind of weird and maybe a little bit reckless when I say this, but I think COVID gave us the perfect example. Go back to COVID really quick and let's look at that for a second. When COVID started, I said this will be the biggest economic shock in the history of this country. A lot of people told me I was a drama king. Oh, whatever. Okay. In that first quarter alone, on an annualized basis, GDP dropped 25%. To put that in perspective, during the financial crisis, 0809, GDP declined to 3.8. Okay, so by far and away the greatest economic shock. The stock market went up 16% that year. We are at a point now where any problem we face that can be fixed by printed money, they will print the money. What we've got to look at are problems that could pop up that printed money can't fix. So it might sound trite, but the ramping up of nuclear war threats, right? That would be something that really concerned me. The ramping up of trade war threats with China. If we get into a back and forth, throwing 20, 30% tariffs at each other, that could get ugly. China invading Taiwan, that scares me. That would keep me up at night. And then just, any type of existential threat. But looking economically at our country right now, I think I don't think trade wars really scare me that bad because we can botch that and we can turn around and get something done because, like I said, China really needs us to, right? We're the biggest consumer market in the world. If you're an export economy, you have to be able to sell to us or your model doesn't work. So what you're scared about is, a dollar devaluing too rapidly. Another thing I would be concerned about is China's still not out of the woods as it relates to the real estate bubble. They're stimulating really hard. That is a situation that could have, and the reason why, Chad, is it's so opaque, right? Because all the banks there are effectively state owned. So you could have a blow up going on there and you wouldn't know it until the very last minute. Because they have no incentive of letting that out, right? Think about COVID and the way they kind of kept that under wraps. So that's pretty much it. But when we talk about slowdowns here in the U.S. economy, as much as I hate to say it, if it's a problem that can be fixed with printed money, they're going to print it.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking to Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bullard Capital. People want to reach out to you. They'd be foolish not to. What do they do? Where do they go?
Yeah, no, thanks. Go to knowyourrisk podcast.com, bulwarkcapitalmanagement.com. Like we say all the time, we do our daily show and our weekly show. Try to do a quick summary of everything that was pertinent in financial markets and political, if it has anything to do with financial markets. Do that daily, our daily dots, and our hourly show on Fridays. Got a great interview coming up. We're doing it tomorrow. We'll probably air it on Monday with one of the head people of AI at Microsoft, and gonna dig into a bunch of all things AI. So should be interesting.
Right on, brother. Good talking to you. We'll do it again next week.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.